I'm proud to serve as the president and CEO of the Danville, Pittsylvania County Chamber of Commerce. And with our partners from the city and county today, we're very pleased to present workplace readiness essentials as we move into recovery and how we can support our businesses throughout the region. So I'm very excited to be joined by my friends and colleagues, Susan McCulloch from the Economic Development Office in Pittsylvania County, Kelvin Perry from the Office of Economic Development in the city of Danville, and Adam Jones, owner of the Brick Running and Try store. So I think we have a great panel. We're gonna jump right in. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen with our presentation. We are recording the presentation and we'll share it with you afterwards in case you want to revisit or share it with anyone that you're working with. So Kelvin, Adam, will you give me a nod if you can see that? My screen, it's working for you? Fantastic. So, as we get started, what we wanted to do, this is a resource that we came across. It's really about a baseline. So each business is going to have to think about their sector, their clients or customers, and how they can best serve them, their employees, and what the needs are. So this framework that we're about to share with you really serves as a baseline, and it's going to vary based on size of business and any number of other factors. And so with that, what we're going to do is jump right into preparing your building for welcoming your customers and employees back. With that, I'll turn it over to Kelvin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. I think one of the things we want to make sure, or that you want to make sure, is that when customers walk in the door, not only what they see and what they feel, they need to feel comfortable, as well as what your workers may be feeling as far as working in the environment. So they want to see a good, clean, a good, safe environment, and that things are safe for them to be able to shop in your respective store or coming into your respective business. And one of the things that we have outlined here is that one of the things that you probably should do is take a look at your lease agreement if you are currently leasing, and determine who's responsible for changing filters or having maintenance work done on your HVAC systems, and make sure that it's on some type of schedule so that those filters remain clean, making sure that it's not blowing out any dust or dirty air that could infect the air that could cause the virus to spread. You want to make sure that your building is cleaned before, and certainly before opening hours, and certainly after closing, so that it maintains an atmosphere of being safe and a clean environment. Just making sure that if you have any, one of the suggestions that's not on here right now is that if you don't have, if you have any closed-in spaces or tight spaces, maybe the use of some dehumidifiers inside your building may be helpful in making sure that that air is clean. So everything that you're doing, you want to make sure that, again, your customers feel that they're in a good, clean, safe environment, and that you're welcoming them to come into the store to shop, and that your employees feel safe as well. And one thing I thought about is that whatever you're asking of your customers, make sure that your employees are doing the same thing. So if you're going to require masks or those types of things of your customers, make sure that your employees are wearing masks, or make sure that they're exercising or using the same type of cleaning techniques that they need to have. Engage your vendors. Make sure that if there are any set delivery times that you can establish with them to come maybe prior to the store opening, or maybe later in the evening, or doing non-peak hours, that might be a great time, so you don't have you don't have activity in the store that's unnecessary, that could cause people to feel uncomfortable and unsafe. And certainly putting those items in the back as quickly as you can as well. I think most people will and understand that what they're looking for, because I think your clients will certainly know what they're expecting as far as coming into a safe and clean environment, and anything that you can do to make them feel comfortable will certainly make them want to come back and do business with you over and over again. that's what I have for right now, Alexis.
So in preparing the workforce, we find for Pittsylvania County that the main point is communication, because the unknowns are what is the scariest to employees. So what we do in Pittsylvania County is we have weekly e-newsletters with updates and a message from our county administrator just telling us what's going on, and we feel that can be transferred to every business listening here. Open and honest communication about policies and procedures, and just to make sure that everything is clear and understood and that the expectations are clearly defined. We also keep sharing the Virginia Department of Health frequently asked questions as a guide, and we find that's been helpful to the different companies that we talk to as well. Also, if there is a plan that could be shared so everyone's on the same page, that's really important too. And there are benefits of returning to work and benefits of working from home. Of course, we've started going back on a staggered shift schedule, and I love my family and my children, but it's really nice to be talking to colleagues again and just discussing work and having that good energy. We also have access to the work tools that we don't have at home, such as the printers and an extra monitor to just help work go smoothly and quickly. But then we also realize that working from home is it's possible. It's not just a luxury anymore, as I've heard on another webinar, that work can be done from home productively, efficiently, and with the tools we have through technology, such as like Zoom here, or WebEx, Google Meet, your phone to add someone into a conference call, FaceTime even. There are so many tools now that have been enhanced and have really ramped up because of this work from home. So we've found that we can do so much more than we thought we can, and that so many employers are learning that employees are really just doing a great job at being productive from all different levels from home. So the next item is the detailed plan on how to return to work. We usually, through those emails, we get information about what the plan is and what step we'll be at. Like May 17th is when we started going back to work for shift A. And so we know when we can expect the next change, and we take a cue from the governor, of course. As for the alternate means of safe commuting, we just have been pretty much taking separate vehicles. If we have to go in the same vehicle, just keeping those wipes handy, keeping the face masks on if needed, and just being extra careful about being in the same vehicle, or even having a seat between us if we can. And then at work too, we are using a lot of good posters. If you see on this sign, on the slide here, the standing together 6 feet apart, we're using that, and we're hanging them up in hallways and on office doors and everywhere where there's a lot of traffic, and our employees know where the cleaning items are, what's to be cleaned and how often. We know what to do about our masks, and customer service, how close we should stand, and going out and helping, and being able to help, just being safe too. So the expectations are clear, and that always helps to prepare the workforce when you're returning to work.
You're on mute, Alexis.
You'd think in week 10 I would have avoided that by now. Susan, thank you for that. We have some materials that have been put together by the partners that we'll be sharing and providing to the businesses that are on the webinar and others throughout the region to help you kind of note where 6 feet is, to let people know that you're taking care of your business and taking care of your employees. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we get closer to the end of the webinar. But with that, I want to let Adam talk a little bit about access, because as a business owner who's remained open through this crisis, Adam, I think you have a really unique perspective. And so with that, we'll turn it over to you.
Alexis, thank you so much. And thanks for all the viewers out there. Hope everybody is keeping their head up and hands washed, as I like to say at the Brick. Yeah, access points. So at the Brick, I speak from just our personal business, our space. We sit on 3,500 square feet with 4 employees. But, we have been trying to work through and manage the situation like anyone else. So in March, it wasn't, when it first kicked off, maybe late winter, and then March, and then it got a little worse and a little worse. So we adjusted based on the government protocol as we went. But we also felt that we were essential, promoting health and wellness in a time of when you couldn't do anything else, basically. Cabin fever is also a real thing. And so when things were shut down, we thought, hey, this is a great time to try to capitalize and promote health and wellness. Get out and walk the dog. Get out and get some shoes to run in. Get your bikes out of the basement. But going to how we kind of regulated that was, speaking from the control of the entry points, including deliveries. We have 6 foot of door space. It's one way in, it's one way out, and we controlled that on every single pretty day when it wasn't 40-mile-an-hour winds or when it wasn't raining. Doors were propped open to make it as touchless as possible. There's also signs on the doors explaining, that 10 patrons or less, that hits you right in the face along with the store hours. We control those entry points with UPS drivers and FedEx workers and so forth, and try to keep it as touchless as possible. But during those times, we also have, speaking from some of the cleaning protocol, at the Brick, we clean every half hour. Now that is using, different sprays, chemicals, everything that is government regulated and approved to handle the sanitation of the doorknobs, light switches, phones, pen pads, benches, so to speak. So we control it that way. We try our best to keep it's one way in, it's one way out. And we would always try to keep that clean if the doors were closed, or have them propped open for fresh air circulation and for touchless entry and exit. As far as the reconfiguring the gathering and the lobby areas, that was one of the first things we did to promote the social distancing by putting tape on the floor at our sales counter for the 6 foot gap between the counter and the person, as well as the person behind that person. We removed any type of seating arrangements, any type of benches to allow for the spacing, the proper distance. And so I personally came in with a tape measure, and I measured 6 and even pushed it to 8 feet. Put 8 feet of space between benches that people would sit on to, try on a pair of shoes. We removed our branding devices and fitting stools from the area. We removed kids' toys at the front of the store. We did everything we could to space out the store and the gathering area for easy flow and for, less chances. The plexiglass we have not installed in our personal world at the Brick. We haven't, we in our business have people come into the store, but I rarely have multiples of people. The Brick is not like a crowd that may go to Food Lion. I'm not that busy. It's a one-on-one, it's a two-on-one. So we felt that the tape on the floor and putting the space between the counter where you would potentially make a purchase and the customer, that it was an appropriate safe distance. And once again, with our locations, we have 3 sanitizing locations throughout the store that people can grab at any given time to sanitize themselves, meaning their hands and so forth, as well as the employees. The clearly communicating the building protocols through signage and floor markings is something that we're doing right now. We're even enhancing that, as you mentioned, Alexa. Those things are sometimes changing rapidly, and so we are looking forward to what you have regarding to the end of this meeting on what that's come. But we are working with Matty Zacks and River District Design Printing on getting some 12-inch by 12-inch, really big and bold and really nice color schemed boxes, and explaining, stay 6 feet apart, safe distance. That really goes with the brick theme that we'll have scattered through the store. We also have, we're working now as we speak to keep a clear path. So arrows coming in, arrows coming out, just like you would see at other places such as maybe a Walmart. And then once again, in the bathroom, on the front doors, signage, real clear, 6 feet apart, 10 patrons or less. That's kind of what we're doing. We have actually canceled all group runs, and so there was no group activities or anything like that to slow down the gathering, so to speak. To fight the gathering. Haven't done any temperature screening, so I can't really speak on that part of this. But definitely on the moving down to the providing sanitizer and wipes and personal protection. We issued custom brick masks to the employees. So they have a really cool brick mask that I make them have with them, hanging on their neck or in a pocket. And it's not mandatory. As Kelvin mentioned earlier, if I'm going to make my customer do it, I'm going to make if we're going to require it to come into the store, then I'm going to make my staff do it as well. And I kind of leave that as freedom of choice based upon how they kind of feel about it. So usually our weekends are busier. So I'll say, hey guys, if it's, if it starts to be like, heavy traffic coming in and out throughout the day, we use them. But I want them to feel safe, that they have it as a backup if they feel they need to. And same thing with the customer. If the customer feels like, hey, I've known the brick, they've been there for 8 years, they keep a clean business, and they feel confident to come in without a mask, that's okay, because I know I'll wear a mask occasionally, but I don't wear it all the time personally. I use it for the big box stores where I feel like there are lots of hands on buggies and lots of people coming and going. I may, typically choose to do so, but I'm not going to do it if I go into Lizzie Lou's, so just using that as an example. And then touchscreens, we have nothing really touchable in the store, but our gate analysis and our custom fitting insole machine right now has not been really in use. We don't do, unless it's a doctor referral, we would do that. But where we make our custom insoles, where they have to stand on and we would touch your foot or so forth, we've eliminated all that for this time being. So right now we're really trying to follow all the safety and health checks that we know to do in order to operate for business. And we have found that it's been beneficial, and that people also are willing to take a little risk to get out of the house to, kind of get back to what we used to be as normal, which is now the new normal. So thank you, Alexis.
Adam, thank you so much. I think there are a lot of great examples there of what particularly retail and maybe even restaurants can take some of that away, those who have lots of people coming in and out, because it's really important to instill consumer confidence. And I just wanted to say a quick word. I'm sure there are people on the call who participated in the city and River District Association, the Chamber distributed a survey about consumer confidence. And really what we learned is that, particularly right now as we're in phase one, people want, Adam, exactly what you're describing. They want to see sanitizer, they want markings, they want, they're wearing face coverings or may want that in the businesses that they're patronizing. So you've really illustrated that well. As we move forward to think about how do we create social distancing plans for our businesses, I'm going to let Kelvin and Susan take that one on.
Not all at one time. You can go first, Susan.
Okay, Kelvin, thank you. So as for the social distancing plan, that really does tie in with the customers and with the workforce. We do, as I've stated earlier, we are alternating work weeks in the office and at work from home. And I know that can't work everywhere, but it's very good for the work environment. We also have found that some of our companies are staggering arrival and departure times so that there's not a log jam at the entrance, and just to keep people farther apart and within the safe distances from each other as they're getting into work or leaving from work. And those are times when there's usually hurry. So that is being worked on and experimented with. Everything, as you know, is kind of an experiment right now, and everybody just needs to work on what would work best for them. Also, teams do negotiate their in-office schedules. Our community development team, for example, they are available through phone call, and then they also work. They also work in the office, and they rotate. That happens in many of our departments in the office, and we see in medical offices they're doing that too. Also, the planning to support that office protocol for 6 feet. And in our building, I keep going back to us, but we are experimenting ourselves. When we're in our office and someone's at our door, we don't wear our mask, but when we get closer to people, we do put our masks on, and we just work to stay apart and be cognizant of everyone, even when we're going through like a shared doorway to the copier or something like that. And people are monitoring the space usage. Our public meetings are at our community center, and the chairs are set 6 feet apart in the overflow space and in the regular meeting space. And everybody just seems to keep to themselves, and they just try to avoid being too close to each other. And I do find that myself when we're shopping in grocery stores, and I feel that's pretty much a common action right now by consumers.
I think Adam has touched on it a little bit, is that people will conform to what they see. And so if you take the time to make sure that the distancing as far as seating and spaces is already have been determined for them, most of us understand that we need to practice social distancing. And so if you create the space for them to operate within, clients will typically fall into place. So if you are planning a meeting, make sure you go in to that space and set the tables and the chairs as where you would want people to sit and where you want people to sit and reside. Or if you're in a store, making sure that you have the seating properly distanced so that people understand that, hey, this is where I sit, so they're not crowded. You don't want any type of guesswork on the client's part. You kind of want to do all the work for them prior to them even coming into the store. And so, because what they see is what they're going to conform to for the most part. And so some pre-planning on everyone's part makes it for a much happier and safer experience for those who are visiting your store, or even for a meeting, or whatever the case may be. And having the outline of here's where I go in, here's where I go out, making sure that you clearly define here's where I stand if I'm at the cash register, and here are the things that I can and cannot do, and making sure that your employees communicate that as well. I think it's important also for the employees to be visible, so they're not all hiding behind the counter, or if you're conducting a meeting, that you're greeting people in and helping to direct them in the way that you would want them, in the way that you want them to go, and how you want them to be seated, so that we keep everyone safe.
Excellent, thank you. Adam, we're going to come back to you to think a little bit more about our spaces and our behaviors, and what we're touching and where we're walking. And so I'll turn it back to you.
Okay. So, at this slide, reducing the touch points, and I can't see what the other is. Sorry. Screen's in the way there. And increase cleaning. Okay. So, at the brick, speaking from the brick itself, and maintaining enhanced cleaning and disinfecting practices. So, that's one thing that we've done since we've been open. We take a lot of pride, and I jokingly say that we have the cleanest bathroom in the River District. We take a lot of pride in cleanliness. And so I'm a big fan of this pre-coronavirus, and now we're even more OCD about it, during. So what we put together was a 4-page cleaning and disinfecting practice sheets that are up on a bulletin board at our place. So it tells you basically exactly what to do. And that may be, in some of our order, to give you some examples, we always start our day with cleaning every single day. It always does. And to the point that most of my staff have it memorized if I write it down or not. So we always dust mop. We always then mop. We always use Clorox and and bleach in our bathrooms. You know, we handle the toilets and the sinks, and we go through, when we first open it, we sanitize phones, doorknobs, light switches, anything that is something that we're going to touch that you really can't help that you have to touch. You know, it's always vacuum. It's always trying to do those high and tight, but we actually have it on paper for whether I have a new employee starting or whether that's an employee that's been with me for 3 years, that is up, visible, that has been posted for them to look at daily. And then we will update that as we need to, if it needs to be more, but it will never be less. It's just, do we need to add something per government protocol that we're not doing that now we have to do in this day. The disinfectants near each desk, as I mentioned before, we keep the sanitizer stations. We have 3 throughout the store right now. And then we constantly keep a can of disinfectant spray, one, you know, kind of what I call stashed in a high traffic area where we're then able to grab and spray accordingly on top of those 3 stations. The food and beverage recycling with single serving items really doesn't pertain to us, but we do have some nutritional items, and they're individually wrapped, such as like nutrition bars and so forth, and small packaging that is easy to grab, but it's no more than 3 or so in a box. Enabling the do-it-yourself cleaning through hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes. I think that's kind of what we've been talking about the whole time here, is just you know, making sure that we are using those products, making sure that it becomes like second nature for us, making sure that it is readily available for a patron that may visit our establishment, making sure that all the workspaces that they come in contact with, as well as us, are sanitized. So we have designated locations for employee belongings, you know, so where I put my stuff is not where one of my staff puts theirs, and it's their kind of somewhat cubby or area that we, you know, keep their stuff together. The in-person meetings, like I mentioned before, is usually just one-on-one or two-on-one, and at that point, we make it really clear upon entry that what maybe our customers have been used to of the services that we provide, that at this moment we're no longer being able to do that, such as one of the services that we always took a lot of pride in our fitting process was still putting the shoe on the patron's foot, lacing it properly, making sure it fits, checking the width, checking the lacing. It's just part of a service that we provided that's no longer being, you know, provided. We're now handing the customer the shoe from a distance, they're putting it on, and we're explaining why we're doing that. So if they feel like that's something that the brick is not used to doing, it's a reason behind that. As I say, going into consider the low touch or no touch switches, doors, drawers, and other fittings, I think very, very similar to what I discussed as far as light switches, file cabinets, you know. So I would sit down and I used to walk through and go, okay, I'm a person, I'm a consumer, I'm a business owner. What do I touch in this facility? You know, what do I touch? You know, a pencil sharpener, a doorknob, a microwave handle, you know, all the little things that you don't think about that we try to put into that 4-page cleaning list that we have at the store. So it's like, okay, clean the microwave, clean the refrigerator handle, you know, things that we just don't really used to not think about. We're really having to really go a little deeper and clean the touchpad on the credit card machine, who's touching the scanner that's scanning the barcodes. You know, the clean desk policy is something that we always, you know, we don't like a lot of clutter at the brick. So everything is kind of high and tight on desks. And one, it's for clean policies. 2 is so we don't knock it off. Create a secure and designated storage area for personal items. I'm sorry, I think I jumped down, but I spoke about that earlier, where everyone has a place for their belongings, such as coats, book bags, purses. They have their own little area for their coffee cups that are not, the coffee cups are, you know, in separate little Ziploc baggies that we use if you want to keep your coffee cup there. You know, we even, you know, we sanitize water fountain handles, and we keep small little 2-ounce little paper cups that you can grab, dispose once you're, you know, done drinking water. And the last is the designated specific enclosed room to isolate any person. So with that, you know, once again, speaking from the brick, we haven't had that. If that happens with me, I just say, stay home. I hope that, thank you, Alexis.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful, Adam, and I think that's great advice. And I think that's what we're going to see as we really move further into this recovery. One of the things we've talked with a lot of our members about is the challenge for employees. We talked about this particularly in the manufacturing community of calling out sick. If you have limited days, do you call out sick because the and so how are businesses really thinking about their attendance policies and things like that as we move forward to allow for employees to make good choices? So I think, the last thing we really want to hit on here is communicating with confidence. And, Susan mentioned it earlier. This is all about communication and understanding that your leadership needs to be aligned. Of course, Adam and I have, Adam, I don't know how many full-time employees you have. There are 3 of us at the chamber, so it's pretty easy to be nimble.
Same here.
For us, Kelvin and Susan are in very different boats talking about, employees of 1,200 or 1,500 people. It's a bit different, but we need to make sure that leadership is aligned as we're bringing people back to work among different departments, and so that they understand what the expectations are, certainly of the employer, the employee, and what those responsibilities are as well. And really establishing that two-way communication. It is imperative that employees feel comfortable talking about any concerns they may have with coming back, with any symptoms they may be experiencing. And so just if you already have that as a part of your culture, it's not going to be a challenge. But if it hasn't been there, I think really this is just a critical time to be working with employees to have that two-way communication and have them share any concerns they have, or maybe ideas they have. There's a manufacturer in Chatham, and they said, we shouldn't be opening doors. Let's touch less. And so they in-house created like a foot door opener. They made it in-house and installed them all over the plant. So now you can open all the doors with your feet. So how are we using this as an opportunity for our employees to be innovative and to really make our spaces safer and cleaner, not just now, but for all time, for future flu seasons and cold seasons and things like that. So I mentioned culture a little bit. And again, for businesses that already have this in place, I think it's easier. But again, this is a critical time to really think about a culture shift of how we're engaging our employees and being inclusive with them in this process as we move into reopening and recovery. So I mentioned expectations. We want our employees to feel secure. So what are the either return to work or work from home policies and incentives? I think for many businesses, we've seen that there's a lot you can do at home. Susan, you mentioned it. Adam, it's a little tougher for you. If somebody wants to come in the brick, somebody has to be there, right, to sell shoes and your other items. But for others, they can be as productive, maybe from home or another environment. So how are we really thinking about the future of work and what that looks like for our employees? Guest and visitor policies. Again, really thinking about capacity, number of people in your space. Again, we know that there are businesses that aren't allowing visitors under any circumstances right now. They have employees. Susan mentioned shift work. There are a lot of businesses that are having teams come in on different weeks. And so how are we think about still being able to accommodate our customers, our visitors, but doing that in a safe way? Employee travel policies. As we think about movement, not just in the area, but in the state and across the country, how are we really thinking about being safe and being able to monitor our employees? What do conferences look like in the future? This has been a hot topic for a lot of our members. These 3, 5, 10,000 person national conferences, what does that look like in the future? How might we be using virtual tools in the future, and how can we take advantage of that, at least in the interim until we have moved into a phase where it's safe to resume those activities? And then finally, those HR policies, not only thinking about illness and supporting caregivers, but again, those attendance policies. We've talked to a lot of our members that said, we've never had a work from home policy. We don't know how to measure productivity. We don't know how to engage our employees appropriately to know what's happening at home. So I think there's going to be a lot of room here for us to be really thinking about how, as localities, as a chamber, how who not only is just an incredibly talented designer, but also is behind the scenes today supporting us on this webinar. So thank you, Laura. What you see on the left-hand side of your screen is a cling that will be available for you. So when you walk up to the brick, you can see that on the door and know that you can shop safely and happily if you go to the brick. And on the right, you'll see an example of what one of the floor decals will look like. So if Kelvin's at the counter buying a pair of shoes, I'll know where to stand to keep him safe and to keep my family safe as well. So these items will be available to you if you're a business in the city at any one of the 7 fire stations. And that'll probably be sometime next week, and we can certainly reach out to the list of participants to let you know. In the county, I know there's some discussion, and Susan, feel free to elaborate on delivery for businesses. So we'll be in touch with all of that too, and feel free to contact Kelvin, Susan, or me if you have any questions about those materials. But we're excited for you to have them. We're excited for the confidence that we hope they will instill in your customers and your patrons. So with that, Laura, I'd like to turn it over to you. We have some time in case there are questions for any of our panelists.
Sure. We did have one question that came in for Adam, asking how do you handle cleaning and disinfecting shoes and other products that are touched or tried on by clients but not purchased and then returned to your inventory?
That's a great question. So typically, if a shoe is, say, tried on at our store, we have something called a 10-second spray that is put out by New Balance, and it is a deodorizer / disinfectant, and it kills such as like staph, MRSA. There's some numerous other ones that I would probably destroy trying to pronounce. And so they get a good spray down, and they get about a 15-minute air out before they go in the box to get them back in stock. But good question.
Good, thank you. I don't see any other questions that are coming in right now, but just to talk about some of the materials, Alexis, thank you for telling people about the materials. If you are located within the city, we will have them available at the fire departments, and that will be middle of next week. We will send an email out, social media, and letting everyone know when they're available for pickup. If there are any questions, now is the time to ask. If not, I'm not sure there's anything else.
I don't think anybody will be disappointed to get 20 minutes back in their day. But I do want to thank you, Laura, for all of your amazing work. Kelvin, Susan, Adam, thank you so much. I think we're just extremely fortunate in our community to have just really strong leadership, frankly, across the region, not only our business and community leaders, but really engaged citizens. I'm proud to live and work here, and proud to work with each of you. So with that, thank you all for being here. We will share the recording, and if you have any questions, know that you can reach out to all of us in the future. Thanks so much,
actually,
and have a great day.
I am so sorry. We just had one more come in.
Great.
We have someone at ODAC in the county. You asked if there was how do you get your window clings and stickers? Susan, I think you'll be working on trying to distribute the county materials within the next week as well, and we will send an email out to everyone.
Yes, I know that you specifically mentioned that the ODAC would like them. You're on my list, so thank you.
Sorry to interrupt, Alexis.
No, not at all. Thank you, Laura. But again, if there aren't any other questions, we'll be back in touch again with the recording and information on how to get the materials, and just wishing everyone a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.